Hi everyone, and this video is about 5 things you need to know before you start sewing. Or I could have also called it something like things I wish I knew before I started sewing. If you're on the path, I hope these things are going to help you and not leave you a little bit frustrated. Thing number 1. In sewing, you press and steam more than you actually sewing. I didn't know that before I started sewing, and it was so frustrating. I was like, each seam I need to steam and it was crazy, guys. So what this is, I suggest is that you check out your iron, you call it right, iron, right, where you can press and you can steam. That the steam and the iron is good. You don't need to go and buy the fancy one, although it can be fine and can be really cool for you. But if you're in the beginning, probably you don't want to invest a lot of money in your hobby. You are not sure how it's going to be, if you want to have fancy things or you will decide to invest later. Just check out your iron. I'll call it iron. If it's not right, correct me in the comments. Check it if it can steam well and if it doesn't leave kind of drops when you steam. It's very important. So guys, this was thing number 1. You need to steam and press a lot in sewing, and as I said before, you probably do that more than actual sewing on sewing machine. So organize also your kind of working space before you start sewing, that your steaming board is kind of, or pressing board is kind of close to you, and you have access to all your steaming pressing accessories. It's going to help you and speed up the process, and you'll not be so frustrated like, why do I need to steam each seam? You do need, because it makes so much difference. The thing number 2 is, do not push yourself with the speed of sewing. What I mean, I don't mean to finish one garment very fast. I mean the actual sewing, when you're stitching the seam on your sewing machine. Probably when you bought your sewing machine, you bought the simple one, which doesn't have a lot of option, like for example controlling the speed of stitching and all the stuff. But I know it happened to me, and I heard several sewists talking about that too, that when you start sewing and you just get very excited that you are making straight long stitch and it's going straight for like good amount of space, and then you get so much excited that you just speed it up, and the moment you speed it up, just something happens and it goes out. Don't do that. Try to control yourself. In the beginning it is very important. Later on it can happen, but with the practice you will eliminate this kind of shakiness or something like that, or kind of you pass too much with importance and something wrong happens. Just, I don't know, a cat will pass by and kick your shoulder, I don't know. Try to take it slow. Stitch with a normal speed. Don't try to speed up, even if you see that you're stitching straight and it goes really very well. Number 3, bobbin thread finishes. Okay, maybe right now you don't know what I'm talking about, but you have 2 threads in sewing machine. One is on top and one is down there under your needle. And that small thing with thread, it finishes. And probably sometime it finishes in the not so appropriate moments. If it is a straight stitch, side seam or something, there is no problem. You can just change it and continue stitching without ripping the seam. But when it is on the collar or something kind of top stitching, and when bobbin thread finishes, it just, for me, it freaks me out completely. I'm like, oh no. It's like I mean, the sensation which it gives is like everything went wrong. And if it is top stitching on the collar or something very visible, you need to rip it up and sew it again. So before you start sewing those important seams, check out your bobbin thread, if it is enough there. And if it's not enough, it is better to change it because those little thing happens and it kind of irritating moments for most of the people, for most of the sewists. The thing number 4 is that patterns have errors. Any company, any sewing pattern, it can have errors in the pattern itself, in the form of the pattern, or it can have errors in the description. So if there is an error and you've checked everything, just something is not coming up, you've checked everything that you've sewn and tried, like the form is okay, and you are sure you're fine, 99.9% is that you're right. I didn't know this before, and I believed in so many bloggers, sewing bloggers, saying that, oh, this company, this pattern is perfect, and the pattern have been sewn so many times. And I personally believe that, and I've checked also the patterns which and sewing companies, sewing pattern companies, who've made this pattern, and a lot of people sewn the pattern. And I thought that, okay, if so many people sewn the pattern, then probably it is just fine. And if it is, so many people were following this so long in those blog posts, probably just fine. So I believed in that, and I faced a lot of errors there. It happened to me with big sewing pattern companies. It happened to me with those little ones. If you have a blogger, for example, which a sewing blogger who you're following for a while, check out what she's sewing. If you trust and believe in her choice, if you know that she's saying what she really thinks, and if she really reads the instructions of the sewing pattern. Because when you're in the beginning, you read sewing instructions like step by step, paying attention to each word. But when you get into practice and you know already how to sew, how to do so many things, you almost don't look at sewing instructions, sewing pattern instructions. So check out that blogger who you really trust and see what she suggests. In this case, I also made a blog post about BLACKLIST for home sewists, where I wrote the patterns, the sewing patterns companies, and fabric shops which you should avoid. And I also made a post about whitelist for home sewists, where I put sewing pattern companies, and I put sites online where you can buy fabrics which I had really good experience with. And one of sewing patterns company which I can suggest to you with kind of my eyes closed, because I've sewn so many patterns and I had success, and I haven't kind of find really great thing about the error or something, like really good sewing patterns. I bought from Closet Case Files. I'm not sponsored, it's just from my heart. So yeah guys, I will link those posts down below so you can check them out, and be careful what you choose. And the thing number 5 is sewing scissors. Okay, there are a lot of stuff going around in sewing about sewing scissors, that don't use your sewing scissors for anything else. First, I didn't know why. I had kind of deduction that maybe it will lose its sharpness, but I was not sure. Then I read somewhere that yes, it will lose its sharpness if you will use it for everything, la 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 la. At the same time, when I was buying my sewing machine, I saw scissors and I saw this little thing. Later on, I saw that they sell it in kind of different formats. There are bigger ones, there are smaller ones. You actually have it like this, yeah. And what this thing does, it sharpens your scissors. And it's not that I use my sewing scissors for everything. I don't. I am a little bit paranoid, and my husband knows that he's not supposed to touch those orange scissors and cut anything with those. But I do cut sometimes a lot of stuff. And if you think like that, is you're cutting fabric, and there are different types of fabric. There are silks, which are freaking thin. There are cottons, which are kind of loose. I mean, there are loose cottons, right? There are root cottons like denim, and can be very heavy and stiff. And of course, your scissors will lose its sharpness. I don't inspire you to use your scissors for anything. But if you are sitting on the floor and cutting your fabric, and you need to cut a yarn, or you need to cut a paper, or you need to cut something, just take your scissors, sewing scissors, and cut it. Get this thing, it really sharpens the scissors. Since I started sewing in 2016, I'm using those scissors. I actually started using them before I started sewing. You get me right, I was cutting other stuff, which is not fabric, but let's say 2015, 15, 16, 17, 3 years, and today is 2018. I was using my scissors for 3 years, and this little thing helped me a lot. When I cut fabrics, thick fabrics, I don't know, linen, denim, and I want to cut silk chiffon, and my scissors kind of behave weird, I just get this thing and everything comes back to its normal stage. So yeah guys, try this thing out and you'll be happy. You'll be happy with your sewing scissors, and don't get so much paranoid about that you cannot cut anything else with your sewing scissors. Yes, you can. Okay guys, these were 5 things I think you need to know before you start sewing, and I'm wishing you the best on your sewing path. The best sewing patterns which will fit you amazing, the best garments which you can finish up, the amazing fabrics which you can find so many in so many shops. So guys, the best wishes for you on your sewing path. And some of you guys who are watching this video and who knows how to sew, please leave comment down below with what you think beginner sewists need to know about sewing, or about something related to sewing, and what you can suggest. Leave your comments down below. I would really love to read, and I hope this video can help more people to join the sewing community. Thank you so much for watching, and talk to you soon. Bye.